Hello and welcome back to the video series where we provide the high-level overview of the textbook LEED Green Associate Exam Preparation Guide LEED V4 edition. And in this video, we are going to cover chapter 3, and that is all about LEED V4 core concepts and themes. So the objectives of the chapter are to identify the purpose of impact categories, describe the life cycle approach in selecting systems, products, and services, then explain how the concept of the triple bottom line affects decisions, explain why green building does not cost more than the conventional buildings, define the concept of regenerative building as going beyond traditional ideas of green building, then differentiate between the integrative design process and the conventional design process. Then to identify the members of an integrative project team, identify the environmental impacts of the built environment, and explain the system types and feedback loops that relate to the environment. So at the end of the chapter, we will go through the key terms so you know the terminology. So what is important to cover here is just because of the climate change, it is critically important to work together with other organizations. And according to the United Nations Environmental Program, or UNEP, Buildings and Climate Change reports buildings account for approximately 40% of total energy used today. That's quite a lot. And architects and construction industries are critically important in actually influencing the change for the better. So when we talk about the impact categories, there are a few, and they include the following. They actually need to reverse contribution to global climate change. Then they need to enhance individual human health and well-being, protect and restore water resources, then protect, enhance, and restore biodiversity and ecosystem services, promote sustainable and regenerative material resources cycles, and build a green economy. And also we need to enhance social equity, environmental justice, community health, and quality of life. So those are the key approaches. So when we talk about the life cycle approach, there are a few things that we need to remember. So there are a few life cycles: cradle to grave, and that means that the materials are not sustainable. They're being produced, used, and then discarded. Then cradle to cradle, or closed system, where materials are sustainable and they're reused at the end of the cycle and upcycled or used again. So the life cycle approach consists of life cycle assessment, or LCA, and life cycle costing, or LCC. So the life cycle assessment is on the environmental consideration of a product, and the life cycle costing is on the cost consideration of a product. You can read more about that in the textbook. So always back up the videos where there are overviews with the text, because there are a lot of graphics, a lot of great images, and it's always good to have that in front of you when you listen to this recap. So when we talk about the triple bottom line is triple P, or people, planet, and profit. People is social, planet is environmental, and profit is economic. And on the juxtaposition of those three, there is sustainability. So we can only achieve that if all those aspects are covered. So when we talk about the cost of green building. There is a stereotype that it costs more than the materials are more expensive, but when we think about it holistically, when we do the life cycle analysis, we will see that actually over the life of a building, it's not going to cost more than the conventional building. So when we talk about the regenerative building, they were introduced to the LEED Green Associate exam materials, and actually they refer to the closed systems that use only as much water and energy as they can produce. So then there is integrative process that is depicted here in the book, and that is a design process in which multidisciplinary teams collaborate to meet sustainable design objectives. And that's from the very beginning, from the inception of the project to the certificate of occupancy and the final completion. So when we compare the integrative versus conventional design processes, we'll see the difference. We'll see that in the integrative approach, time, energy, and collaboration invested in early stages. So people sit down and discuss how that's going to be instead of just working and then realizing that something went wrong. And also, it allows for full optimization and lifecycle costing, and process continues through post-occupancy, which is critically important. It doesn't stop when the construction is complete. So also, actually, there is an integrative process credit that was formally introduced in LEED V4. So it's a separate credit, and you can earn that by documenting the process. It's a total of 1 point, and the intent of that is to support high performance, cost-effective project outcomes through an early analysis of the interrelationships among systems. So when we talk about the phases, there is a discovery phase, the implementation phase, and the occupancy phase. So they're all very important. Then the iterative process that is used in design, and that involves conducting research, sharing data, receiving feedback, and refining the design. And that goes in cycles. So you can repeat it until the project's sustainable goals are met. So you go through the research and collecting the data, then you analyze the data, then you share that with the team, receive feedback, and then you refine the design for the better outcome. When we already spoke about the open and closed systems, so most systems in nature are actually closed. So there's like a cycle, like if you look at the cycle of the water and other things in nature, so there is no end, it just goes and goes in cycles. So what else is important in this particular chapter, chapter 3, is actually if you key terms and definitions, and they will help us later in the later chapter. So let's go over them real quick here. So closed system is a system in which materials and resources are reused or recycled. Cradle to cradle, a term applied to a product if a new use can be applied to it either at the end of its first useful life, diverting it from a landfill. Cradle to grave, a term applied to a product if its lifetime is limited to one application or use, and then it ends up in a landfill. Downstream activity, an activity related to the processing of materials all the way through the delivery of the final product to the end user. Embodied energy, the total cost of energy, the total amount of energy used to extract materials and manufacture, transport, install, and use a product across its life cycle. Feedback loop, the section of a system that allows for feedback and self-correction and adjusts its operations according to differences between the actual output and the desired output. Integrative process, a design process in which multidisciplinary teams collaborate to meet sustainable design objectives from the inception of a project to its completion. Iterative process, a process used in design that involves conducting research, sharing data, receiving feedback, and refining the design repeatedly until all of the project's sustainable goals are met. Leverage point, a point in a system in which a small change can yield large results. Life cycle assessment, or LCA, an assessment of the environmental impacts associated with the material or product throughout its life cycle. Life cycle costing, or LCC, an analytic tool used to determine the most cost-effective option among competing alternatives based on the cost of the options throughout their life cycles. Negative feedback loop, a section of a system in which the system self-corrects and stays within a particular set of parameters. Open system, a system in which materials and resources are continually brought in from the outside, consumed, and then removed from the system as waste. Positive feedback loop, a section of a system in which the output of the system is applied to the input, resulting in constant increases. Pre-use effect, the effect of changed behavior as a result of making information about the subject more visible and available. Regenerative building, a closed system that uses only as much water and energy as it can produce. Triple bottom line, an accounting framework that incorporates the social, environmental, and economic dimensions of an organization. Upstream activity, an activity related to the extraction of the raw materials used in a product. And that wraps up our chapter 3. I will see you in chapter 4. Thank you.